Today what we're going to do is sculpt some pumpkins. The first step in doing a successful sculpture is in the selection of a good pumpkin. What you're going to look for in a pumpkin is a green, somewhat green stem at the base of the pumpkin, and that's going to give you longevity so that the pumpkin is going to last you a period of time. So what you do is if you go to a farm that has selections of pumpkins, try picking your own, cutting your own. Select a nice, tall, and round sized pumpkin. That'll be your most versatile sculpture that you can do. The next step is usually whenever you buy them at a farm or at a grocery store, the cheapest ones are the field pumpkins, which are usually dirty. So the first thing you're going to do after you've selected your pumpkin is to clean it up a little bit. And the best way to do that is to have a little bit of clean water with bleach in it, and just simply take a rag and wipe off all the dirt and soil that's clinging to the side of the pumpkin. I've wiped off most of this prior to the presentation here, but just make sure it's clean and soil free. The next thing you're going to do is the cutting off of the lid. The easiest way to do that, and conventionally people have made zigzag cuts and everything, and when you try to put the lid back on, it's always a matter of turning it and trying to fit it in. So what I've done was set a notch that goes to the back of the sculpture that's 2 vertical cuts and a horizontal cut, connecting them. Make sure you make all of your cuts complete. And then on an angle, you want to take it in and cut all the way around it. If you don't do it on an angle, then the lid's going to fall down inside. So you want to keep it on about a 45-degree angle or so, and come all the way around and meet your horizontal lines. The next section is lifting the lid off. Now, I should make mention that whenever you select your pumpkin, everybody wants to pick it up by the stem. And that's the wrong way to carry it, because if you break the stem off, you're going to have a hard time lifting off the top, and it's not going to be as nice a presentation, and probably when the stem falls off, you're going to break the pumpkin into pieces. So just kind of, after you made your cut complete, just kind of lift the top off, and while you have it here, just cut off that pulp. Scoop it right back into the pumpkin, that way you won't make such a mess. You could do this with your sculpting tools or with a knife, whatever you have available, and just clean that off. You want to get all the moist pulp off because that's going to prevent rot after you've completed your sculpture. Set that off to the side. After you think you've got most of it freed, you're just going to pull these seeds out, and you can, if you want to do roasted pumpkin seeds, the best way in preparation, so you don't have such a mess, is whenever you're lifting these seeds out, kind of squeeze them, and it'll free them from the pulp, or from the strands that are inside the pumpkin. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. Grab a garbage can. As you're lifting them out, just kind of squeeze. And that's going to free them up so that you can make your pumpkin seeds. And you don't have to just use margarine and conventional things. You could do a lot of different recipes for pumpkin seeds. You could use garlic salt. See how easy they come loose? And you don't have such a mess. You use garlic salt. You can use Cajun spices. There's anything that you favor, your taste favor, you can use. And just scoop it all out. Look down inside, and what you want, see all this, the strings and fibers and the slippery stuff. You want to get all of that off so that the pumpkin won't rot. So take your scoop back over it, again very quickly. And after about 2 tries, you should have it pretty much clean. You're looking for a white, somewhat porous surface, and you know you've gone down deep enough. And not to mention, later on in the demonstration, you'll see why it's important to prepare the inside of the pumpkin for illumination purposes. You want to somewhat thin out the skin so that the light can show through, and you'll know what I mean later on in the demonstration what I'm talking about. I pretty much got this completed, and see if we can show you what it looks like on the inside. Yeah, I think that's good enough there. Scoop out all the excess debris. Keep yourself a garbage can real handy so you won't make such a mess. Keep everything right on hand. You can do it efficiently and as cleanly as possible. Rinse my hands off. I have a dry rag here for wiping off any of the debris on the outside. Let's take a look inside the pumpkin and you'll see what I'm talking about. A nice white porous surface on the inside, and that's going to give you a lot of longevity for the sculpture. Okay, the next phase, see how easy your lid goes on? The next phase of the sculpture would be selecting a pattern or a design that you'd like to incorporate onto the sculpture. One thing I want to make mention of also is before you cut the lid out, set your pumpkin down so that you have the widest space area in the front. See how it's kind of tilted in the back? Usually a pumpkin's like that. Put this as your front surface so you have a wide area to work from. And the back of it is usually marred or marked somehow from laying on the earth. So that's basically your first step in preparation. Next is to incorporate the pattern onto the pumpkin. And these are some for lack of better words, a revolutionary idea from the traditional triangles for the eyes, nose, and the zigzag mouth. These are very radical changes from the traditional way of doing pumpkins. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I've decided to select the cat for our pattern today. And it's a very simple cutout pattern that we'll incorporate onto the front of the pumpkin. Very simply, all you do is take the cat face for a selected pattern and use pins. Just center it onto the pumpkin face, leave yourself enough border from the lid so that it gives you structural support, and just kind of plug it in like this. Get everything straight. And let me tell you something, whenever you put these pins on, you're going to be tracing this pattern right onto the pumpkin. So what you want to do is put your pins right to the edge so that the holes that the pins will make into the pumpkin won't confuse you later on in the sculpting procedure. Just put it at all the basic 4 corners to secure it onto the pumpkin. The next segment that you want to do is take some of your basic tools that you're going to be required to use. Will be like a scalpel type tool, a chisel, your saw, and there's a drill attachment here that I'll use later on. So the next thing you need to do is trace onto the pumpkin right according to the pattern. Just follow the lines very simply. I've been sculpting ice for a number of years, and I've incorporated a lot of that information into sculpting onto pumpkins. So this is a real conglomerate of different information all applied to the jack-o'-lanterns. These are not just limited to the Halloween time. You could do these sculptures at Thanksgiving or during Christmas. Although pumpkins are out of season, you could use watermelons, cantaloupes, honeydew, anything, any firm, pulped fruit or vegetable, gourds, anything that you have on hand will give you a good creative flair for accentuating buffets and impressing friends. I'll tell you what, since I've been doing these, I've heard nothing but I've never seen that before, and people were just so impressed. I started out doing these for friends that were Halloween enthusiasts, and before you know it, I was doing 50 and 60 of these for Halloween. So I've through that experience, I've gotten pretty proficient at different designs and patterns. Basically, anything that you see that you like, you can sculpt. I have a basic pattern for about 23 different sculptures, ranging from basic to the more difficult pieces. This one is a pretty basic, but one of my most requested pieces. What you want to do is make marks on every line that is on the template, and you make little puncture holes. You could use these tools. You could use a pen or a tack to make these traced lines onto the pumpkin. A pencil, good sharp pencil or pen, just little punch holes, and you'll just connect the dots, basically. This is a very simple piece to do, very basic. We'll just follow this right around. Just hold your tool like a pencil, and that gives you your most mobility. A pencil is fine for using on this. It's just a matter of making a slight mark, just so you'll know where you're cutting. That's all you really need to do. Now what I usually do is I'll, on the eyes of the various different sculptures that I do, I'll cut out the section to highlight the eye. And then I'll put a little mark here so that the pupil will shine through. And you'll see this is quite effective on the finished product. I think I got just about all these lines on, pretty close to anyhow. You see how quickly this goes together. It's not difficult at all. I think this is my last line here. And then we'll remove the template. What I usually do whenever I think I have it all on, is I'll pull the pins out of one side so that I don't lose where I was. And just take a look. See? I have everything on there that I need to complete the sculpture. So I'll just go ahead and remove the template. And you see that the puncture holes from the pins are pretty much on the lines where I'm going to be sculpting away anyhow, so it's not going to interfere with my cutting. Now, on this particular piece, I'm going to be removing the outer pulp around it to highlight it. The inside, as I said, the ears, the eyes, the mouth is where it's going to be cut straight through and that the light is going to be shining from. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. I made this myself. I used a piece of oak, drilled out the center, and put a hacksaw blade into it and glued it in real secure. And that really is a very durable blade. And there's burrs on the edge of a hacksaw blade. I took a file and I shaved those burrs down on the sides so that my points are only on one side, so that it isn't going to tear up the lines and stuff as you're sculpting. Okay, there's the ears. You want to go a little concave cut here to highlight the pupil. So let's cut this piece out, cut this piece out. And you'll see how easily these pieces will just slip right out. And you'll know if you've made your cut all the way through. That's important. Another point that I want to mention here is when you're cutting, go as straight as you possibly can. It's going to prevent you from cutting into parts that you don't want to cut into. So hold your cutting apparatus straight and level. That way you won't cut into any other parts that you don't want to cut into. Remember, this cut is concave to round out the eye. You want to keep your cuts to a minimum so that you're not spending the whole afternoon sculpting out your pumpkin. So I try to cut as many corners as I can. Anytime you make an incision into the pulp, the light's going to show through. I don't care if it's just a little nick, a little tiny nick, that's going to show through. Whenever I put the light in it, you'll see that. Remember that later on in the demonstration. Let me make a couple of cuts here for the whiskers very quickly. See that? Now that's your basic outline for the cat. Where do you see this with a light in it? All of these things are going to illuminate. Every little detail is going to show up. The next step that you want to proceed with is take your chisel. Now, instinctively, people want to use their chisel like this, with a flat part down. It's wrong. You're going to lose control and you're going to dig too deep. Always hold it with the flat side up, and that's going to give you a nice, accurate, precise cut. You're just going to lift off the pulp, and this is the most time-consuming segment of the sculpture, is lifting the pulp off. What I like to do is always leave myself a relief cut. That's why I've sculpted down into this, so that whenever I lift off a piece, it doesn't interrupt the area that I have carved out. I better give myself a little relief cut along here. Let's add on to this. Let's make this a little bit more elaborate. We have the cat on it, and that's going to be a nice presentation in itself. But you can get creative and do other props, so to speak, on the sculpture. Let's set this little bat sticker on here. Another one of the templates that I've accumulated over the years. And this is real quick, real simple, just a matter of tracing it out and leaving the lines on for relief cut so it won't interrupt the sculpture later on. Real quick. This is a 1, 2, 3. Such a simple operation. This is what I was saying. See, I'm just tracing directly. I'm bypassing some of the steps by just putting the piece right onto the pumpkin and going ahead at it. You can take pictures from coloring books, from grocery stores. A lot of times during the holiday seasons have little stick-on the window type patterns. You can photocopy those, or you can cut right into them if you don't mind ruining one of those designs. Photocopying, it's a good idea. You can just cut right into the paper and you'll come up with a real nice sculpture, and it's really going to impress your friends. That was a 1, 2, 3 piece. See how that's on there? We'll just lift that off. I didn't miss any parts, and we'll set that off to the side. I could put another one on the other side, but I think you've gotten the general idea. Let's complete this cut around, the relief cut, so that we don't go beyond where we want to cut. We'll just completely surround the sculpture with this cut and connect it back where you started. Now take your chisel and just lift out all these pieces. I noticed that on some pumpkins, like this one for example, see how this just lifts off so easily. It's just like a piece of cake to take this stuff off. Some of them are a little bit more difficult. Now this has a very porous surface. This is going to give you a lot of life, and a lot of times another indication to tell how long your sculpture is going to last is you'll see a lot of green, which you'll see later on in the sculpture, that indicates that it's a very young pumpkin and it's going to last a long time in your window or on your front porch or whatever. You see how I'm holding this also. I have my thumb on here as a brake so that I can't, the tool is not going to get away from me and slip into another section of the sculpture. That can devastate you if you're further along and you slip. You'll there's potential of ruining the entire sculpture, which you wouldn't care to do, I'm sure. So we're just going to very quickly break away. Notice I'm falling right onto the line, and remember that my chisel is upside down, that I'm not going into it. See, if I go this way, it's going to go deep. You don't want that. You want to keep it as shallow as possible, especially at this point when you're simply just removing the pulp. If you are into a very tight spot and you break off a piece, say you're working on the eyeball and you broke off part of the eye, you could just take yourself a toothpick or a pin, a needle, anything you have on hand, and just slip it through that part and refasten it. A lot of the old-time sculptures, they would cut the teeth out and just kind of plug it on with a toothpick, and that works fine. You can also highlight these. I mean, get as creative as possible on these. You could have your own home style contest. A lot of people do that, little pumpkin sculpting contest right inside the home, and get the whole family involved. Now you can take colored lights like Christmas blinking lights and insert them on the inside, which is far better to use electric lights than it is to use candles and whatnot, because the candle will cook the pumpkin and decrease the longevity of the sculpture. So you want to try to keep low intensity lights inside it, avoid candles, especially because I'm going to put a special coating on later on, and it's going it can be flammable. So if you have a candle in there, you can catch your sculpture on fire. You don't want to do that. So we're almost completed here. You can paint the outside of this. You can plug the lights into the eyes or the mouth. You could use colored gels on the inside. You can use colored lights. There's so many different things that you can use on them. Just be creative. Use your imagination and have fun. That's foremost. Have fun. See, I didn't complete a couple of these little minor connections, and I just take my chisel and complete my relief cut. Once again, so that I won't cut into my sculpture. See that? We're coming down to the end. This is, like I said, the most time-consuming part. What you want to do after we're done getting the pulp out is make that surface, this pulp area, smooth. And I'll show you a way to do that very simply. Okay, that's it. We can simply, let me mention also, when you're working, leave your lid off. I should have taken that off from the beginning, because you're going to be moving it around, it'll fall off and break on you, and you don't want that to happen either. Let me make sure my cuts here are completed. Just follow right along my cut lines, make sure it's freed up and hung up somewhere. Be careful that you don't interrupt the other areas that you're going to be sculpting later. Just reach inside, feel where you are, and push it out. See that? Or you can push it to the inside, whichever is more convenient for you. This area here is to highlight, accentuate the mouth. I put those little dots on earlier. All I have to do is connect the dots very quickly. The best way to handle the pumpkin usually is just to set it in your lap and cross your legs. That gives you a good secure base to work from. I'm doing it this way for demonstration purposes only. Just follow right around. This is a little freehand work, which I wouldn't recommend to a novice. There. Take a chisel. You have your relief cuts established. Just lift out that area. Try not to interrupt any of the other sections that you had previously cut. Just lift it right out. There you go. Some of this can be somewhat tedious, but it's also fun. I really enjoy this kind of work. You want to leave the skin on the teeth, because later on, whenever the light is in the pumpkin, it's going to be highlighted. It's going to come out real nice, and you're going to see that. Let's carve the tongue back a little bit. We've got the basic shape of it by what you sculpted into it. You want to cut it back far enough that the teeth are going to show up, but not too far that you take the tongue out completely. So just lift it out. I have a number of different sizes of chisels that I use at this point. This one is probably about 1/4 of an inch. I have one on hand here that's about 1/8 of an inch for getting into these tight spots like this. Real handy to have the right tools. Where do you see the effect that this has? Okay, I have a piece that is a little bit further on in development that I'll introduce now. Keep my mess area clean. You see the green stripes that are in the pumpkin. That tells you that this is a very young pumpkin and it's going to last a long time on the window or on the porch or wherever you have it displayed. You see on this particular one, I've incorporated 2 bats on either side. You could use spider templates. You can use, you can take these bats rather than having them, the pulp area here, cut them out and have that so that the light is shining through. That's a nice presentation also. Smooth off your area. Once you have it pretty close to where you want it, just take your chisel, hold it like a pencil, and scoop it off. You want to smooth it out and make it as even as possible. You see, the deeper you cut in to the pulp, the brighter the light will show through. So you want to go at least 1/4 of an inch into the pulp. You have 3 basic surfaces to work from, and this sculpture exemplifies that pretty clearly. You have the external surface that gives you one effect. You have the secondary surface, which is cutting into the pulp, which gives you another effect. The third type is cutting all the way through the piece, which gives you a third type of effect. So you have 3 basic levels that you can work with. As you can see, the sculpture is pretty much evenly cut all the way around and is ready for preserving. A real simple way of preserving the sculpture is to add an oil base. The best one that I know of is Vaseline. Let me give you a little demonstration here. You see how the skin came off of that tooth? Well, this is very simply take a small piece of pulp and cut it out in the shape of a tooth, just a real tiny piece, and this is for any kind of errors that you'd make. Just go like that. Take a small dab of Vaseline, just add the Vaseline to the back of the skin and lay it right onto the pulp that the skin fell off of. And you've reincorporated it. You haven't hurt the sculpture at all, so you can patch up a lot of the mistakes, most of the mistakes that you could possibly make on the piece just by using a little creative imagination. Okay, very simply, all you need to do is take your Vaseline and apply it to all of the cut areas. You don't have to worry about the skin areas as much as you do the pulp. All you do is simply take a generous amount on your finger and smear it all around the pulp areas, coating it evenly and somewhat heavy on it. Be generous. Make sure you get the top edges of the cut surfaces as well as the flat areas. Every little portion of it will help you preserve it that much longer. After you have evenly coated the entire section that you have cut out, take yourself a little bit of vegetable oil, pour a little bit into your hand and smear it around the inside. Now I want to caution you that if you are planning on putting a conventional candle on the inside, don't do this because you're making it flammable. But this will help preserve it that much longer. It keeps the bugs down, keeps the pumpkin moist, and prevents it from rotting. So just make sure you got a nice little coating of oil on the inside, the Vaseline on the outside. You've covered all of your cut through areas. Get your lid along the edges so that they don't shrivel up. And another good point is, even with all these precautions, your pumpkin will eventually start to shrivel up. A very simple means of preserving it is take the whole pumpkin, submerge it into a bucket of water or in a sink for 2 hours. Take it out of the water, dry it off thoroughly. If you want to preserve it for even a longer period of time, recoat it with your Vaseline and your oil, and your pumpkin's going to last you about 3 weeks. And you're going to have a nice presentation for your guests and your trick-or-treaters that will just complement your entire holiday season.